Hey, what's up, guys? Bajheera here. Oh, baby. Patch 10.0.5 is here. And let me tell you, man, it feels pretty good. It feels pretty good. I was doing some arena yesterday. Warrior is feeling like a complete class, man. We have a little bit of extra defensive. Rotationally with Ignore Pain, we have some really cool talents that synergize together even better than before. The builds that we had access to, I think, are even a little bit enhanced. But it's a good time. It's a good time. I'm having a blast, and more testing is definitely required. I gotta figure out the builds that I like and the comps that I like and everything else that goes along with that. But I know a lot of you guys are asking, like, hey, like, what's the build? What are we doing? So um, I put together a couple different builds. Once again, this is kind of some things that I'm interested in, things that I've been testing out. I definitely encourage you guys to give things a try and see what you like. But let's go ahead and show you guys some of the things that I've been working with here. So this first one is the double blade storm with the haste buff, basically. So there's a lot of things that are fairly, I would say, like relatively standard. A lot of things with a warrior build are going to be kind of the same. Where I mess around with stuff is mostly I'm going to stick with spear most of the time, unless I'm playing the bleed build in particular. I am using this sort of Wrecking Throw, Shattering Throw combo. But if you don't need Wrecking Throw, Shattering Throw, it's you have some options, right? Like you could put a point into Menace if you're playing against like a Demo Lock and you want to fear all their pets, like along with their Tyrant on their go. That's good. You can even play a bigger Rallying Cry against certain things. You could play like lower cooldown Kick, which is good. Sidearm's not so great, but you could play that too if you wanted to. You could play a little bit more Rage to pull Rage for, making sure you always have enough Rage for Ignore Pain. You have some options there, but a lot of times I'm just going to go ahead and stick with Wrecking Throw, just baseline right there. But then, of course, you can move this talent point into a lot of other stuff if you wanted to. That's one area of wiggle room. But once again, a lot of this is going to stay the same. Here, the main thing that's changing is Blade Master's Torment. I like Double Blade Storm for this build. You have access to Unhinged like all the time. Sometimes you might want to spec out of Unhinged if it's really not going to get any value. And we can talk about that in a little bit. But what's so crazy about Arms Warrior right now is you actually have access to all three of these like last point talents, which are all really solid. Unhinged is great. Love Executioner's Precision. Fatality is like half meme, half OP. Like, sometimes it does nothing. And then sometimes you're hitting a Shadow Priest or a Warlock for, like, the whole game. And then all of a sudden, they have 17 stacks of Fatality on them. And you get that one execute, and oh, baby. They get chopped all the way down. And that's hilarious. It's really fun. So, it's weird because Fatality is, like, not necessarily good enough to spend a point on before. But now it's like, well, I mean, if I get it, I'll take it, and it's pretty fun. So I feel like I don't want to already be saying that we're gonna get nerfed, but I feel like if something gets nerfed about Warrior, it might be the fact that we have access to all of these. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't know if we need to get nerfed for that. It's just like, okay. I mean, this is a talent you wouldn't normally play, but if you get to mess around with it now, it is pretty fun. So I do like playing Fatality. I do like playing Unhinged. Obviously, for this build, it's like that's kind of the idea. You're playing 2 Blade Storms to get big Unhinged value, and then of course having Executioner's Precision in there, it's just juicy. Your sudden death procs, if you ever get anybody low, it's like that much more pressure. Having your execute increase your Mortal Strike damage. Now it's nerfed by half in PvP, so it's 17% more damage for your next Mortal Strike, but still, that's still really nice. It's still really good. And I am putting 1 point in critical thinking. You could put this point somewhere else, by the way. Like, you don't have to have it there, because you have access to Executioner's Precision just through Sharpened Blades regardless. And I'm going over this build as if you guys already know what the talents are. So how about we'll say that we're building off of my previous build guides with this, because I'm also trying not to have this be an hour-long video theory crafting about Warrior, which usually happens. But I guess a couple notable things that have changed is you definitely want to take Ignore Pain now, guys. If you're wondering where Ignore Pain is, it's just here in this talent. Usually you took Stormwall before, maybe. Now you're absolutely taking Ignore Pain. Another thing is, we have Sweeping Strikes baseline, so now you can choose between this. Long Sweeping Strikes does sound really cool, and it might even be really good with Unhinged, but you don't need to have a long sweeping strikes to get unhinged value, because the sweeping strike, I think the unhinged mortal strikes come out like the first couple ticks of Bladestorm anyway. And I'm telling you, man, strength of arms is noise. 10% increased crit chance, 10% increased critical strike damage, and enemies below 35% health, overpower generates rage. I mean, that's pretty nice, man. That's just solid. That's just solid damn, and I'm pretty sure it works well with Dreadnought too. So strength of arms is very appealing, but improved sweeping strikes could be cool too. I haven't really worked that into the testing yet. Like I said, I've only really done like one arena session so far. Felt pretty good though. Felt pretty good. And we're gonna keep on working with that. There's a new talent called Spiteful Serenity. The only problem with this talent is that you have to drop anger management, which I think is my favorite thing about Warrior right now. Especially with the introduction of Ignore Pain, which is a lovely defensive layer. It's nothing insane. It's nice. It's great, but it's a nice little defensive layer. But it also works really well with anger management to make your Warbreaker to come off cooldown more often, which is just so nice, so cool. So it's hard for me to want to drop that for this. But if you were gonna play Spiteful Serenity, what you could do is you could play Spiteful Serenity and Test of Might, because you have a longer period of time to stack your Warbreaker. Or stack the rage spent during Warbreaker effect, right? So there's some cool synergy there, but then there's also really good synergy with In for the Kill and anger management. But yeah, I love anger management, so it's hard to drop that for Spiteful. But if you guys try it out, let me know what you think. It is pretty interesting. You also notice that I am taking Rend now. I think that's one of the important things that's happening here, is because you need to take one of these. Like, you have to take something here. You have to take one of these talents that's not taken to get down to the rest of the stuff. Skull Splitter is it generates rage. It's kind of a long cooldown. Slam, even if you take every point, it doesn't do anything. These two are like PvE things. This one's not really PvP. You could take Blood Surge if you just don't like pressing Rend. I mean, you could take any of these if you don't like pressing Rend. The thing about Rend, though, is that if you don't prioritize Rend, if you just prioritize like Overpower, Mortal Strike, Ignore Pain, Hamstring, like all that kind of stuff, even if you prioritize all that stuff, Rend can still deal like 7 or 8% of your damage. And I tested it. It does kill totems. The initial tick, when you press Rend, that damage will kill a totem, and it's actually more damage than Slam anyway, unless Slam crits. But, I mean, it's 30 rage spent too. Warriors don't really struggle with rage too bad. You might be noticing sometimes you don't have enough rage if you're spamming Ignore Pain. But it is a nice little bit of damage as like a filler. I don't think you need to prioritize keeping Rend on the target, but it's more like, you know, if I don't have Overpower or Mortal Strike, I have Ignore Pain rolling, Hamstrings up, press Rend, and it's fine. It's fine. But if you really don't like pressing Rend at all, you can put points into one of these other ones. Blood Surge for a little bit more rage every once in a while. Slam just for like when you finally do press Slam, maybe it's a teeny bit more effective at killing a totem or something, right? That Slam crit maybe kills the Siphene a little better, you know, like whatever. Or if you could play Skull Splitter, which is like a 21-second cooldown, kind of a long cooldown. Does not scale with haste anymore, doesn't seem to. It does a little bit of damage. It makes your deep wounds expire instantly on the target, which is kind of cool. And it generates rage. So it's like you have some options, but I think my choice is probably going to be Rend, which I haven't been playing very much of, but there's that. But yeah, that's the double Bladestorm. Once again, the main things that are changing is we're going Warlord's Torment. Definitely still going In for the Kill. And a lot of this stuff is all the same. Okay? So let's show you the second one. Now, as you'll notice, not much is changing when I swap to a different build that has Recklessness. Warlord's Torment. You can 100% absolutely still play In for the Kill. In for the Kill is great. A good solid choice in general. What I'm curious about, though, with this build is if I play Test of Might, right? If I am gonna Warbreaker and then immediately Bladestorm, there's no reason to press Test of Might, right? But if I'm going to Warbreaker and then try to just dump as many like big hit damage abilities as I can, then you could end up getting, you know, 5 to 10% strength after Warbreaker. And I mean that adds up, right? You can imagine that being good. If you get a full 10% strength, that's pretty solid. And so it's gonna be like really like consistent pressure. But you don't always have the uptime. That's the problem with Test of Might. You don't always have the uptime to get that much rage generation and rage expenditure. So it's an experimental thing. I might try it out, but if you don't want to feel like If you don't feel like being experimental, then 100% playing for the kill. Still feels really good to have that extra haste. And I might even just click it right now and apply, because that's probably what I want to play most of the time anyway. You'll also notice that none of my talents are really changing, right? Like, nothing changes. It's the same sort of like, hey, if this situation occurs, then you could do that, you know? If you really don't want to play Unhinged, that's the other thing. Like, if you're playing like an Unholy DK or a Demo Lock especially, and it's like Unhinged might hit random imp number 7, right? Instead of the target that you're looking for. You could unspec Unhinged. I've tried Hurricane before. I don't really like it. And you also make it so you can't cancel Blade Storms, which is kind of weird. So you could put this point somewhere else. You could put it into making bleeds do more damage. You could make bleeds generate rage for you. You could make bleeds last longer. You could just put an extra point of crit. You could put this point really anywhere you want. But I might just plop it in Unhinged on the off chance that sometimes the target's isolated. Because what you can do with this setup here, you don't get double Blade Storm, but if you still get Unhinged, you can still do the Warbreaker. Like, if you get somebody isolated, even on a Demo Lock team, or even if you want to play crit anyway, because the crit is good regardless, you can just hit somebody with that Stormbolt, Avatar Warbreaker Spear combo, and then just Blade Storm them, and they're going to get bop, bop, with 2 likely to crit Mortal Strikes, which is a lot of damage. A lot of damage. So you can 100% still play Unhinged with the crit now. You didn't really do that before. Sometimes you could. I didn't do it very much, but it's definitely a thing, and now it's even easier. So, pretty cool. Like I'm saying, Warriors have some cool options. Now, if you're like, I don't feel like doing any of that stuff, I want to play Big Bleed, and then you can do some Big Bleed stuff, dude. Let me tell you. Look at this. Look at this. So, a couple things are changing here. You're not going to Spear anymore. You're going into Giga Thunderous Roar. Big Thunderous Roar. So, this talent, oh, sorry, this was nerfed before, right? Thunderous Roar was nerfed in general. It is unnerfed now, and you also have Uproar now, right? Which makes it reduced cooldown by a full 30 seconds. It used to be only 15 seconds, which is kind of a random nerf for PvP, but now it's unnerfed. So it does big dam, and you can use it more often. So look at that. It causes, with all these talents that we have on the other side of the tree, I'll show you in a second, it causes 60k damage over 16 seconds every minute. And that's not counting, like, Avatar Warbreaker, right? So, I mean, that's potentially some big rot. And what's happening to cause that big rot is we're not taking Unhinged. We're not taking Critical Thinking. We're actually going all the way over here. We're not taking, yeah, and we're going to Bloodborne, which, you know, once again, Deep Wounds, Rend, Thunderous Roars, Bleed is increased by a ton. Bloodletting, here's the thing about Bloodletting, is if you're on target a lot, you don't really need the extra, like, bleed duration, okay? But it does work with Dragon Roar, or Thunderous Roar, pardon me. It increases the duration there, and then it also increases the duration here. And for increased crit chance is always nice too. So you can do some cool stuff with that. 100%. It's just, once again, the only problem is I'm also not, with this particular setup, I'm not taking Strength of Arms, which feels really weird to me. So you can probably drop a point there to take Strength of Arms. I just don't know if, like, another 7.5% damage is worth it. I think losing Strength of Arms is just, you can't do that. But what I was mentioning about Bloodletting is, I feel like you could relatively easily drop that and do this. Just keep the damage. But then, of course, is, like, I think extra time on the dots means extra ticks, which might outweigh the 7.5% damage. So once again, this is kind of experimental. There's math on it. I feel like this is a more powerful talent than this, and I think this is a more powerful talent than this. Like, just like, it's gotta be, right? So I think if you don't want to play Unhinged at all, you're fighting a million pets, you just want to bleed the crap out of the pets, go for it. One thing that I am not doing with this build that you definitely could do is you could shave a couple points off of talents like this. Well, maybe I can't do it with the way that it's set up right now, but then you could go into Thunderclap, and you could go into Blood and Thunder. Can I do that? Yeah, now I can do that. And then you could spread all your Rend with Thunderclap onto all those Demo pets and just rot them. Now, is that valuable? I don't know. But you could. I've done this in RBGs before, and it's kind of fun. And then you may want to try to figure out a way to get Blood Surge if you're going to do that. because you guys have infinite rage off of all the pets. I think it's kind of more of a meme, but it is something that you can do. Anyway, those are probably the big 3 builds right there, guys. I'm trying not to make this video too long because I love talking about warrior talents. I love theory crafting, and I know I could just be like, okay, guys, here's the build 1, build 2, build 3, and then I could just link you guys the thingos, which I will do. And then you guys just take the build and play with it. But one of the things I like to talk to you guys about is the options that you have, because sometimes things are going to change depending on what you're fighting, right? Like if you're fighting like DKDH, you probably don't need Wrecking Throw, right? In that situation, it might be nice to have a fear that stick a little longer, or an extra rallying cry, or it might be fun to have a nice little kick if you're fighting something that doesn't have anything to Wrecking Throw, right? Wrecking Throw, I think, is a great tool against like Shadow Priest and Warlocks. Shadow Priest, you use it to kill the Psy Fiend. Against other stuff, you might not need it, but you can play something else. But overall, I think these builds will get you started. There, as you saw, there's not much that changes. A lot, like you take everything, you just take all this stuff, and then if you want to do a bleed build, you take some of the different stuff. But there's some like really just locked in great talents. Like, you know, you're always gonna have your Mortal Strike resetting, doing big damage to overpower, nice Tactician resets, nice overpower resets, resetting Mortal Strike. Like the way that arms just works, like the class core stuff of the talents that you just always take in order to make your class function the way it's supposed to, those are cool. And now the arms has another like thin rotational defensive layer that synergizes offensively. Like it's feeling much more complete. And the fact that you have so many cool talents that you get to look forward to, like you're like, oh man, I press execute, the next Mortal Strike's gonna be huge. Or like, okay, this guy's never dying because he's a freaking Warlock tank. But if the game goes on long enough and I get enough Mortal Strike stacks, I'm gonna smash this guy with execute later in the game. So there's things to look forward to. There's like cool procs. Warrior's just a blast right now. It didn't need much. That's the thing. Warrior did not need much. That's where I was like campaigning, whining every day about Ignore Pain for like a month, because it didn't need much. So we got Ignore Pain. We got some other cool stuff too, which is even better. So guys, get on your arms, Warrior. Have fun out there. Fury, by the way, just as like a little footnote to the video, Fury did get buffed too. I think Fury is not as good as Arms, but it's in a position where you can play it, and you're probably not griefing your team as much. The Mortal Strike effect lasts longer, damage got increased, so that's all Fury really does, it just does damage and Mortal Strike something. So those two things got empowered by the buffs, so we'll probably make a little Fury guide too. I can't imagine anything's changed, it's just do the same thing you were doing before, you got a little bit more effective at it, but I could probably make a video about that too, just for fun. Anyway, guys, let's not make the video too long. Hope you guys like these builds. I'll try to make sure I have them pasted in the description for you. Both the Blade Storm with the haste, the Recklessness with Test of Might, maybe, and then Big Bleed. Those are the big 3 builds. There's other things you can do, surely. Test them out, experiment. You know, Spiteful Serenity perhaps is a cool option too. But yeah, these should at least get you started and at least let you kick some serious butt in PvP. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you show the video some love, the big thumbs ups. Let me know if you enjoyed it in the comments. Subscribe, enable notifications to see more from me. Come tune into the stream at twitch.tv/Bajheera. We are live like every day, usually lifting in the morning, gaming in the afternoon, taking a break to hang out with the family, and then back at it again for hopefully some arena every night. That is the plan. So if you guys are interested in any of that kind of stuff, follow along. We'll see you guys there. Peace.